There's a question I get asked all the time. How do I transition into a career as a social impact designer? How do I begin to take on a career where my work and my actions can create positive change in the world? How do I begin to make a difference in my society, designing for change rather than designing for mega corporations or other for-profit entities that don't really align with my goals and my values? These are the questions I get asked all the time by designers and other socially conscious individuals who want to transition into careers in this field. And I have a common set of advice that I want to give them, and I want to share that advice with you today. I'm Daryl Coleman, and this is Social Impact Live, a show where I give tips and frameworks for those who want to create change in their own community or change in the world around them. And this seems like a relevant piece of information to share with those of you who might decide to follow this channel. So the folks who come to me at different stages in my own life cycle. Right? So I run a social impact strategy and design consulting firm. And a lot of the people who come to me are designers who are interested in some way of, one, learning from me in general about how I do the work I do or what my path has been. But secondly, it is learning how or whether they can take on a job with me potentially at my firm. And there are some people who I think when they come to me like this, they're really well suited to take on that role. And then there are others who I have other advice for as we move forward. And I want to share with you what the biggest tip is from that sort of experience, which is that those who are seeking to transition into a career in social impact are often missing a key element of the equation that I call the prove it principle. And I call it this, and it actually shows up in a number of spaces in our life, but essentially it is this idea that everyone has something that they say that they want to do. They say that they're interested in, they say that they're passionate about. But the difference between those who end up standing out and often being selected for a job in that field, which is what a lot of people are really looking for when they come to me. They're saying, I want to transition into a job. I want to get paid to do this work. Some people want to start their own business in order to do that work, but most people want to get hired at a firm like mine or another social impact consulting or design firm in some way. And so the thing that lets people stand out the most whenever they are seeking a job like that is that they have proven that the thing that they say they care about, right? Everyone's coming to the table, they're all saying, I care about social impact. I want to do social impact work. I want to create change in communities. This is really important to me. There are those who say that but don't have anything behind them that really demonstrates that that's true. And then there are others who come to the table with a resume of experiences that say, not only do you say social impact matters to you, and I believe pretty much everyone who comes to me and says that it matters to them in some way, shape, or form, but not only do some people say that it matters to them, they can prove that it matters to them through their actions, through the actions that they've taken before. And I call this the prove it principle. I call it demonstrated passion. I call it a number of different things, but it actually shows up over and over again throughout our lives. So whenever you are trying to do anything where you want to stand out from the crowd, you want to stand out from others who are trying to vie for that same position, being able to walk into that situation and say, not only do I care about this, not only do I have a passion for it, not only do I maybe have the basic background, right, the design skills, the training, the degrees, etc. But I also have a resume that says, I know how to do this work. Right? That principle, standing on that as a foundation, gives you a huge leg up in terms of your ability to enter into this industry. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, well, that's all well and good, but if I can't start in the industry, if I can't do this work, how can I possibly build a resume that says that I can do this work? Right? This is a common concern, it's a common issue, and it's actually, I think, a misconception because it's based on the way that our society is structured. It's based on a myth about how our society is supposed to function right now, or how the job market, etc., is supposed to function right now. And the main myth here goes something like this. You take on jobs, and those jobs hire you. There are entry-level positions that you take on that train you on that job. And then once you gain that training, you move up the ladder within that job. I say it's a myth, maybe that's an overstatement. It is true in a certain number of situations, but it's also not the whole story, right? Because there's this other element to getting that entry-level job at times in the first place. You see, the space of designing for social impact is actually not a very big one. There aren't that many companies that have figured out how to sustain themselves within this space, provide that sort of value, bring in designers who can do that sort of work, and continue to produce results over and over again. It's an interesting combination of business skills mixed with the social impact element, mixed with design and the creative engine, and those are a lot of the things, the design piece especially, that doesn't get funded whenever people don't have a lot of money, which is true in general, or can be true of the social impact space overall. So when I say it's not the full story, what I mean to say is that to get that early entry-level position, and this is true for a lot of jobs, not just in the social impact design industry, but in so many positions, in order to get that entry-level position, you actually might be competing with people who have a significant amount of experience in different ways. So the question, how do I gain that experience? How do I gain the experience to build a portfolio, to walk into the room and say, here's all the work that I've been doing? And the answer is often to volunteer in some way. I'll give you two answers actually to this question. The first is to volunteer. So let's imagine you want to build a portfolio doing social impact work, and you want to be a social impact designer. You want to say, I can walk in and I can focus in on a system, and I can say, I understand what's broken about the system, and I can apply design skills to it. You want to be able to say, I might have a background in fine arts, or I might have a background in graphic design, or I might have a background in history. Whatever the field that you're coming from might be, if you want to move into this space, the question is, well, who have you worked with before? And you might say, well, no one, because no one has paid me. But someone else is walking in with a portfolio of volunteer experiences, things where they found a nonprofit organization where they could give away their services for free in some way, but they could then build up a portfolio of what that looks like. Others are walking in and they're saying, well, here's a project that I did while I was in college, or while I was in high school, or while I was just on my own, and this serves as my portfolio. It's something that I built or created myself. And that serves as the second piece of advice, the second answer to this question. The first is go volunteer with an organization. Very tangible advice for you. Find an organization in the space that you're interested in, and go and see what services you can provide that can help you build your social impact experience. Specifically, give you the opportunity to tell some stories about your contact with social impact issues and those who you want to serve, right? So that's one answer. And the other is demonstrate that you are the type of person who takes initiative to move toward goals like this on your own, potentially by starting your own organization while you're in college, finding your own projects to work on, imagining what a solution to a major social impact issue would be, and going through the steps of going out and talking to people who have experienced that challenge, understanding what the key issues are, defining what those issues are, coming up with ideas for a solution, prototyping out the visuals of whatever the solution might be. These things begin to build a portfolio that shows someone who would hire you how you think about solving problems like this. It shows them the types of challenges you've had to struggle with. It shows them the ways that you've overcome those challenges. And when you're weighing as a hirer, as someone who's hiring, right, you're saying, look, we have limited number of spots, and we need to hire someone who can really move the needle on these major social issues. The things that we are working on impact the lives of millions of people, right? So when you're weighing who is most likely between these two candidates to help move the needle, and on one side you have someone who says, I've studied design, I've studied some sort of discipline, and I'm interested in this space, but I can't tell you exactly which space. I can't tell you exactly which issue I want to work on. I can't tell you about personal experiences I've had with the issue at hand. I can't tell you about experiences I've had working with other people who have the issue at hand, but I have a lot of energy and a lot of passion. You got that person on one side. And on the other, you have someone who says, I have studied these issues, but I've also started my own organization or club. I also put together my own case studies and went out and took the initiative to do my own work to figure out about issues. I may have lived experience myself, and if I don't have lived experience, I have stories about my contact with people who do have lived experience and the work that I did on their behalf. I have an organization I can point to who can give me a referral or a letter of recommendation of some sort that I volunteered with, etc., etc. When you weigh these two candidates, the one who has figured out a way to build a portfolio despite no one hiring them is 100% the better candidate, 100% the more likely, the more obvious, the safer in many ways candidate to hire than the one who hasn't. And I think this is true across the board. This is true for almost any job that you want to walk into. The more experienced, the more poised, the more ready for that you can walk in to that position, the better off you're going to be. If you want to be a manager at a restaurant and you can say, I've been the manager at 2 other restaurants in the past, that is going to give you better experience. If it's going to help you stand out, right, on your application. If you can walk in and say, I've worked at another restaurant and I was the assistant manager, that's helpful as well. If you're going to walk in and you say, I want to be the manager at this restaurant, I've never managed anything before, but I have a lot of energy and a lot of passion, someone might hire you, but it's going to be a lot harder to do that. So this is the tip that I give to folks whenever they want to enter this space. There are a lot of people who have deep experiences designing, great experiences designing for tech companies, great experiences designing for other industries in general, for manufacturing and automotive and all sorts of spaces like that. They have shown the ability in a lot of ways to solve problems people have. But there are these leaps that have to happen between spaces. And I think that most of the boundaries we create can be dissolved rather easily without you going back and getting a whole new degree. But to show that your experience designing for a tech company can apply to the experience of designing for major social impact issues in a space that moves at a different speed, in a space that thinks differently and operates differently in a lot of ways, has a different psychology and a different ethos and a different ethic to it in a lot of ways, where the issues are so much more human-centered and emotional than they might be in a tech industry, for example. To say that you can make that transition really requires demonstrating that you can make that transition through the previous work that you've done. So no matter where you are, no matter how experienced you are, the leap is not necessarily one that's going to be automatic. You have to put in the work within the space itself to sort of prove, right, that you have a commitment to those sorts of issues in the first place. Especially, I'll say this as the last point, the social impact space as a whole is one that people burn out of. It's one that people come into and then they dip out of again. Because at times it does require a level of sacrifice. It does require a level of slowing down. Does that mean that you can't live a great life, provide for other people, provide for your family, create things that improve the world? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean any of those things. Does it mean that you have to sacrifice everything that you've ever gained or done in order to be in the space? That's not what I'm saying either. What I am saying, though, is that in comparison to some other industries, the emotionality, the challenges that we're facing, the reason that they persist so long is because they're really big, really complex, really interconnected, and to be able to interact with them requires people who hold and combine a lot of different skill sets together that some other industries don't necessarily require you to combine the same way. All right? So if you want to enter one of these fields, if you want to work at a company like DC Design, if you want to redesign our criminal justice system, our foster care system, our educational system, if you want to develop, innovation infrastructures to accelerate ideas that are going to transform the criminal justice space, if you want to reduce veteran suicide by increasing collaboration amongst disparate stakeholders in different places who don't typically work together, if you want to do work like that, which is the work that DC Design does, then you need to come to the table showing that you are the type of person who is actually invested in this from a personal standpoint, not from an idea standpoint, not just from a heady place. Because to stay within that sort of work, to be the person leading a project focused on veteran suicide prevention, requires us to make sure that you're the type of person who would be moving in that direction on your own anyway. All right, that's what I've got for you today. That's this episode of Social Impact Live. I want to know in the comments, did you find this helpful? Was this useful for you? Please do let me know. If you found this useful, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That helps to share it with other people as well. If you know someone else who would benefit from this, send this video along to them. And if you have a question, a different question, maybe than the one that I just answered here, I would love to hear what it is. Again, my name is Darrell Coleman, and I will be back tomorrow with another episode of Social Impact Live. I go live every day. Looking forward to seeing you then.